Yeah, it is the introductory session. Yes. Yes, Karthik. It is also on YouTube. So if anyone is having issue joining, then you can go on YouTube.
So we should start.
Yes, Bhavya, go ahead.
So, hi everyone. Good evening to all. I heartily welcome you all to our DSA Diary session number 1, Introduction to Competitive Programming and Data Structures. Today we have with us Mr. Shivai. He is a GSOC mentor, MLH fellow, ex-mentor for Girl Script Summer of Code, and he is currently CodeChef community manager. He is so supportive as our community manager, and according to us, he is the perfect person to tell us about how to start with competitive programming and improve our concept in data structures. Welcome, Shivai. And I just want to give a quick information about our team, that is CodeChef CGC chapter and CodeChef UMIT chapter. So let's start with CodeChef UMIT chapter. We have Miss Shruti, the president,
Hello, everyone. Nice to see you all.
Miss Kirti, the CP lead, Miss Ria, the event lead,
Hello everyone. I hope you learn a lot from this session.
and Miss Shruti, the social media lead.
Hello everyone.
And now from CodeChef chapter CGC, we have Mr. Anurag, the president,
Hey everyone, myself Anurag Bhardwaj.
Mr. Sanket, the social media lead,
Hello everyone, welcome to yourselves.
Mr. Bipul, the CP lead,
Hi.
and myself Bhavya, I'm an event lead. Since the meeting has limited capacity, so we have also YouTube live stream simultaneously going on. Link is provided in the chat box as well as on your WhatsApp groups and Discord server. So if you face any issue, you can contact us on the YouTube too. Without any further delay, I request Shivai sir to start this session. Over to you, Shivai.
All right. Thank you so much, Bhavya, and for giving that lovely introduction. And it's really great to see such kind of an amazing initiative that is being organized by the entire CDC and the UMIT team. And of course, this 1 month long celebration about competitive programming, especially helping a lot of beginners getting started with competitive programming. What exactly is competitive programming? How can you get started? What are some of the prerequisites? How to become better? How to practice problems solving, and ultimately what are the different kind of career opportunities, what are the different things that you can gain by doing competitive programming. So all of that would be something that we'll be covering today in this particular session, and also in the upcoming sessions that have been being put forward by the team. So without wasting any further time, let me quickly just share my screen. So just give me 1 second. I think it says that you're not allowed to share your screen. So probably you might have to. Okay, all right. But I hope from this session, especially for those who have just started their journey in engineering or in their colleges, they are able to actually gain a lot of insights into what exactly is competitive programming, and it gives them some kind of an idea regarding competitive programming as well. So looking forward for also answering some of your questions today after I conclude some of the topics that we are going to be covering. And hopefully this particular session would be beneficial for each and everyone who is today watching this particular session.
Yeah,
So
Shivai, now you can share your screen.
all right, let me quickly just check if it's visible. Yeah, all right, I think it should be visible now.
Yep, it's visible.
Let me know if the slides have come up.
Yeah, they are.
All right. Thank you so much. So again, welcome everyone. I'm Shivai. I'm currently a community manager at CodeChef. I was, of course, an avid CodeChef user myself while I was in college. But of course, I did realize that I was not probably the one of those topmost coders. But of course, I wanted to sort of utilize my own learnings that I got while being a college student and wanted to apply them and share with others, because I have always loved to share knowledge with others. So that is why I felt this kind of a role of helping out competitive programmers was something that I wanted to do, and that is why I decided to be a community manager at CodeChef. And today's session is more sort of a beginner-friendly session for helping you get started with what exactly is competitive programming and data structures, algorithms. What are some of the steps that you can take, what are the benefits, and some of the common terminologies, and what kind of learning path one should have while being a competitive coder, right? While they are practicing competitive programming. So all those are the things that we're going to be covering today in this session. So without wasting any further time, I would also want to just quickly share what exactly is CodeChef, right? So CodeChef, a lot of you might be knowing. For those who might not be knowing, I'll also be giving a quick demo of the CodeChef platform. So CodeChef is a platform which allows you to practice and take part in a lot of different competitions that are geared towards competitive programming. As we discuss about competitive programming, what exactly it is, what its main objective, right? You'll understand that in a more effective manner. But it has been a platform and as a number one platform of choice for a lot of different competitive programmers. A lot of great contests like ICPC, Snackdown, all these different kind of competitions that are hosted on a international level are partnered with CodeChef. So it provides you a learning journey, and also it allows you to practice a lot of different questions related to data structures and competitive programming. So specifically talking about the CodeChef chapters program. So the chapters program's main goal is to provide each and every student in India the ability to become a to become a competitive programmer. So just helping each and every student from all remote part of the country, from each and every college. I mean, that's the main goal, to empower the students, to make them aware of what exactly is competitive programming and give them the learning path at least through which they can try at least. Because a lot of time what happens is a lot of colleges, and this is quite common across India, right? Especially in tier 2, tier 3 cities and colleges, that students really do not even have knowledge of what exactly is competitive programming. They probably might have heard it a couple of times, but just because the culture of the colleges is such that there's not really a lot of such kind of culture of a lot of people taking part in these competitions or actually doing coding actively, right? So it's mainly, I would say, due to the two reasons. One is lack of information, and then also misinformation. A lot of times competitive programming is sort of glorified as this kind of a thing that cannot be done by average people, right? And it's only like, oh, you have to be an Albert Einstein minded person to be able to do it. So to try to sort of remove those kind of misconceptions and give the right kind of a path to help people and help students get started with competitive programming. That is the main reason why the CodeChef College Chapters program was started. Today we have more than 290 plus chapters all around the country, where we support these chapters to help empower their students who are part of the chapters and the colleges, to at least get started and give them that initial motivation on what are the benefits, how to get started with competitive programming, what exactly is competitive programming. And that is what we are also trying to do with this particular session that we are having today for DSA Diaries. Right. So with that in mind, let's move into the journey of competitive programming. So of course, I mean, the first question would be like, what exactly is competitive programming, right? And I would sort of go about to define competitive programming in this way that, see, before I move directly into competitive programming, let's just break down of what exactly is programming, right? So programming in general is that, okay, you have some kind of a problem and you want to solve that problem, right? Of course, we talk about problem solving. So programming is mainly just being able to articulate whatever thing that you want to do, right? In steps that we call as algorithms, right? So algorithms will define how do you go about solving a particular issue, or it could be a problem, solving a particular problem, right? And articulating it through code, right? Through code. It could be code. It could be in any particular language like C++, Java, right? And feeding that code to your system, which is able to understand that it gets converted into machine language, and it interprets that and executes via the CPU, right? And it renders an output. So we know, of course, what exactly is programming, right? But coming directly to a competitive programming scenario, right? What exactly is competitive programming? Because once you enter the field of programming, we are not just learning how to write a code, right? We are not just learning about a particular programming language. We are also learning how to solve problems, because as a programmer, if you just know, okay, like about a language, that's not enough. Unless until you really know how to code, you know how to basically write a code and solve a problem, then you cannot be called a proper programmer, right? So when you start learning programming, you just are not learning the programming language, but you're also basically learning the art of thinking, I would say. Like, I mean, just to put it in this way, the art of problem solving, right? Because a lot of times when you're writing any kind of a program, you're trying to solve a problem, right? Now, the complexity of that problem may differ from situation to situation, right? So I would say, like, yeah, programming is like an exercise for your brain, where you are thinking about what kind of logic should be implemented, and that logic is translated into a code, right? Now, when this problem solving, this logic building, all of this thinking can be considered not only as, let's say, writing a simple program, but as a sport, right? Competitive programming is also known as sport program. So essentially what you're doing is that when you're applying all these different kind of logics, these problem solving techniques into a sport, right? And the sport is, let's say, being held as, let's say, competition, where there are more people like you who are there, and they're trying to solve these problems in a very quick manner, right? In limited amount of time, right? That is really what exactly is competitive programming, right? That is the main idea behind competitive programming. So yes, you still use the fundamentals of programming, right? But at the same time, now the other thing is that you're trying to solve problems as quickly as possible in as limited time as possible, right? We generally have these two different words that you'll hear from time to time, and one of them is time complexity, and the other one is space complexity. So what exactly is time complexity? The time complexities means how much time is it taking for your program, for your code logic to actually execute to solve a particular program, right? And space is how much space. So generally we mention space as the memory that that the particular programming logic or that algorithm is taking. So the ideal case is that you have the least amount of time that is going into solving the problem. That means your time complexity has to be the least, and similarly the space complexity has also be the least. So typically in competitive programming, you would want to solve the problem in such a way that you're able to solve it in the quickest amount of time and also in the least amount of space, because there are specific marks that you get for doing just that. And that is the reason why we also call it sport programming, because it's more considered like a challenge, like a competition, rather than just writing like, let's say, standard development. So of course we have something called as normal development, right? For example, we have web development, machine learning, app development, and those are slightly different than computer programming in a way where, of course, you're still writing logics, but then there are all other kind of aspects associated with it, right? For example, with development, you have to look at how will the user interaction, user design would look like, how is your code interacting with the database, with the backend, right? Security, then deploying your applications to cloud. So all those are like part of your development. But competitive programming is more considered to help build upon your main logics of not only programming, but in general, being able to solve problems quicker, right? So we'll be discussing about what are the different kind of benefits that you can have by being a competitive programmer, and also trying to remove some of the myths that are surrounded with competitive programming, right? We'll be covering all of that today. But I hope that this gives you a bit of an idea about what exactly is competitive programming, right? And before I move on to talking about the CodeChef platform and talking about some of the other things that you'll hear when you get started with competitive programming, I would like to just go on and have this exercise. So I'll just quickly stop sharing my screen, and any one of you, if you are willing to answer this question, feel free to do so. So let's start with a brief puzzle, right? And the puzzle is that, let's say there are three friends, right, who have let's say one of the friends has their birthday, and they have ordered like a rectangular cake, right? So there are three friends who have ordered a rectangular cake, right? And let's say one of them was in a very quick hurry, because that person was really excited for the other person's birthday. So what they do is that in hurriness they cut like a rectangular piece of a cake, right? So they have ordered a rectangular cake, and they have cut also a rectangular piece from the cake. So this piece, like, there isn't any particular size that is given for the piece of the cake that was cut. But of course it will be lesser than the size of the entire cake, because you cannot really cut a piece of a cake larger than the cake. And so now basically the problem statement says that, okay, one of the friends, they cut a rectangular piece of the cake, and then you have two remaining friends who want to divide the remaining cake, right? So they have cut a rectangular piece of the cake, and they want to divide the remaining piece of the cake so that they get equal portions, right? They get two equal portions from a single cut. So you have already taken out, let's say, one piece of the cake, right? And you want to divide the remaining piece of the cake into two equal portions with a single cut. So the single cut could be made in any kind of a fashion, right? It could be a horizontal cut, it could be a vertical cut, right? And they both need an same amount of cut. And the cut that you can make cannot be along the height of the cake, right? You have to basically use it as the base. So anyone probably willing to share how could we do so? Because again, why I'm having this exercise is this will showcase to you how basically you think about solving a particular problem, right? So again, the problem statement is there are three friends, they order a rectangular cake. One of the friends, they cut a rectangular piece from this rectangular cake. Now the remaining two friends have to divide the cake into two equal halves, but they can only cut the cake once. So can someone probably think what would be the possible way through which they could actually do so? Anyone probably? Again, we are just trying to have this this kind of an interactive session to sort of give you some kind of an insight on what is the problem solving art that we can expect to have. So if anyone has any ideas how we could do so, feel free to have. Sure, Piyush, if you want to go ahead. I guess Piyush.
I have assumed that the cake has been cut like this. in such a way that the whole length part,
Yeah.
length or breadth, you can cut that whole length part and both the sides will be made equal. Then we can easily divide.
Okay. All right. Anyone else? Anyone else?
We can cut the cake diagonally.
Diagonally. Okay. But okay. So yes, diagonally could be a great way. But do you have any technique that when you cut the cake diagonally, could you add some kind of a condition to it that it actually makes it a perfect cut, right? So yes, diagonally is a good option, but is it the best option, right? So where I'm coming from is that competitive programming requires you to find the good solution, but it also requires, if you want to become the best competitive programmer, you have to find the best possible solution. So yes, a diagonal cut is a good way, but what kind of extra clause can you add to this diagonal cut to make it the perfect cut? Anyone?
We can
So
cut
there
from
are
the
different
center.
cases of the
The
cases.
center? Absolutely.
Angle.
Makes sense. Through the center. So, I mean, this is just to give you a brief idea that you will find these kind of problems from time to time, right? When you're solving competitive programming, and the entire idea is to utilize your brain, right? Your thinking caps, put on your, we say, right? Put on your thinking caps and try to find the most optimized and the best possible solution in the least amount of time, right? That is what is competitive programming. Of course, I mean, this was just a very simple example. Of course, the more you practice competitive programming, you do learn a lot of different things. And of course, I will be coming back to the benefits of having competitive programming. But this was just to give a very quick quick intro. Let me know if my screen is still visible. All right. So now what we'll do is we'll briefly discuss about the CodeChef platform, right? What exactly is the CodeChef platform? I'll just quickly give you a walkthrough on how to basically write contests, or how to basically take part in contests. So this is the CodeChef website, right? And as you can see over here, you can practice a lot of different questions based on the difficulty level. So let's say if you are just getting started, right? You can take part in beginner friendly, easy questions, medium level questions. And all these questions are again based on different kinds of techniques. So within competitive programming, as you move ahead and ahead, right, in your competitive programming journey, you'll learn about a lot of different techniques to solve problems. These could be algorithms, these could be some standard mathematical concepts that you can actually use to solve particular problems. So the more you practice, the better you are able to understand and get a wider range of things that you can learn. So basically over here you can practice any of these problems, right? And we'll be going over one of these problems very soon. And let's say you can also compete. So you can practice problems, right, on CodeChef, but also you can compete. Every month, every week we have at least one or the other contest. So we have primarily like 4 different type of contests. We have basically this long challenge, which takes place for a period of 12 to 14 days, right, in which you get that much amount of time to solve problems. Then we have starters contest that is mainly focused towards absolute beginners, right? Then we have standard problems like the CodeChef cook-off, right, and lunchtime. So these kind of contests, these are timed contests, right? And you have to solve a number of different problems, and the faster you solve them, the more points that you get, right? And of course, we have like a dedicated discussion section where you can ask any questions, and we have this kind of a discussion forum where you can ask any kind of questions, right? And other folks from the community will actually help you resolve those queries, right? And for example, let's if you want to practice in starters competition, you can find over here, right? Like for example, we actually have one starters program contest starting after this one day, so that is on 29th. So make sure that you do take part in this, and just generally giving a very quick overview of how is the how to basically solve a problem. So let's actually go and take a look at one of the basic problems, right, by difficulty level. Let's pick up one of the simplest problems that might be there. Let's say we can pick up this number mirror. So generally what you'll find is with any kind of a problem, and this is going to be quite similar with other types of, let's say if you're using some other platforms to solve competitive programming questions, or you're using CodeChef only, you will be given a problem statement, right? And that problem statement will sort of bring you to a speed with, okay, what exactly is required in that particular problem. Then the next thing that you'll be given is the input, that okay, this is basically the input that you can consider, and what is the desired output that you can have, right? So there will be certain conditions that will be I guess there's some question. Oh, okay. Yeah, so basically what the different things that will be given is, like, let's say an input and an expected output, like what is the expected output, and then you're given certain constraints. These constraints sort of let you know, okay, for example, the input that you can take should be between, let's say, 1 to 1000, or let's say that the amount of time that it takes for you to solve the particular problem should be less than 100 milliseconds, right? Because as I mentioned, that competitive programming is time bound as well. You have to be very cautious of the time that you take, because when it comes to like really big competitions, the rank between number 1 and number 2, or any between 2, can also vary quite a lot, just based on the how much amount of time it actually took to solve that problem. So there will be certain constraints, and these are used to give you, like, to make the program a bit more challenging as well. And then you'll be given some kind of a sample input and a sample output. So basically the problem in this particular one is write a program that accepts a number n, and that it also outputs the same number. So you just have to essentially print that number, right? So what you can do is you can basically look, okay, what exactly is the problem statement. So whenever you start with any problem statement, right, always first read what does the problem statement it want, then carefully understand, okay, what is the expected input, what is the expected output, right? And look at the constraints, because a lot of time people, they look at the problem statement, they get overexcited, and they start solving the problem without really looking at, okay, what was the original constraint, right? Because constraint plays a really important role. And let's say if you are confused, then the sample input and the sample output can actually help you. That okay, if you're providing this input, what is the expected output that you will receive? And the input conditions and the output criteria, they tell you what is the expected input in what format, right? And what will be the expected output, right? So if your output does match with the expected output, you have successfully solved that particular solution. So when you click on, let's say, solving this problem, you can click on submit, right? And you get basically two different options. Either you get this simple editor, where you can select the type of language in which you want to solve the problem, or let's say you can switch to this IDE mode, right? IDE is the integrated development environment. So if you switch to the IDE mode, you can again select, like, let's say, language. So for example, let's say I select C++, right? And so let's say that, okay, the problem required me to take an input. So what I can say is I want to basically fetch an input, right? So I would say, okay, like, enter an input, and I would use like cin. So let's say I say I define an input int, and I'll just increase the size. Let's say I define input integer input, because it's a number. So let's say I define input as 0 initially, and then I, let's say, cout enter input, right? Let's say so, and I basically enter the input. So let's say I define the input. So let's say this is input number. This is my variable number, right? So, and then I can say cout, and then I'll print the number, because the expected output is that it should print the number. Now, one more thing that you'll also see is basically the total number of inputs that you have to take. Sometimes you'll also be mentioned that, okay, how many times, like, let's say there are n inputs that you have to take. So generally in that case, what you can do is that you can run a loop that will basically define, okay, how many number of times do you want to take an input. Generally these platforms, like, you just have to write a generic code, and these platforms, how they work is that they're able to recognize your general code, and they're able to run it over some basic inputs. We'll talk about what exactly are cases and what is the time limit that we get. So I'll be discussing about that as well. But generally, like if you put it in this way, like let's say enter the input. So now what I can do is, and of course over here you'll also see that you can provide a custom input to your file as well. For example, let's say want to test out whether this particular the program, what will be the output that you will be receiving. So if I go ahead and run, let's say if I run this, right, let's try to run this and let's see what do we get. Okay, so the input is, oh, okay, let's see. So we have taken the input, right? So we say, okay, enter the input. But let me see, or let's say if I give it a custom input, let's say if I give it 4. So what I can do is I can remove this part of the line and I can just take an input, simple input, let's say, and let's try to run this. So this way, what you can do is that you can basically take an input, right, and you can test whether the different kind of test cases pass. So I'll be talking about what exactly are test cases as well. So whenever you are writing any kind of a problem, right, in computative programming, so basically whenever any kind of a problem is set for you, right, at that point of time, what happens is that there are certain number of inputs that are taken into account, right? Those are set by the problem setter who is setting that problem. And when your code is executed, right, it is expected that all the different, basically for all these different kinds of inputs, your outputs are calculated. And then what happens is that for that same code, right, we look at the original author's code that has been written for that particular problem, right? And then what we do is we compare between the outputs that are received by your code that you have written and compared with the original outputs. So you can just consider that yes, the original code that has been written for that particular problem statement is the correct solution. So basically, for let's say 10 number of inputs, your outputs that are received based on the code that you have written for those inputs are compared with the outputs that are originally from the problem. And if all of them match, then that means you have passed all the different kind of test cases. So these like cases are, I mean, essentially these, text files that have different inputs, right? And you're just supposed to be like, basically what happens is that whatever code you write, those are run with these inputs that you provide. And then what happens is that once the run, like that your particular code that you have written, it runs over these inputs, it generates the corresponding output. And then you have both basically the input and the generated output from the code that you have written. And then you compare between them and you see that, okay, if all the cases pass, that means that, okay, my program has run completely. So let me actually just remove this custom input for now and just try to run this. Okay, so for some reason it's not taking this input. Let me just define this like this. All right. So let's say that if I go ahead and also add, like, let's say a custom input. So in this case, the custom input would be let's say 7, and I try to run this. Let's see if it actually prints the same with the custom input that I've provided. And as you can see that the output is 7, right? So it's printing the same thing. That the idea was that, okay, you give the original input and you give the output, right? So if I submit this problem now and see, okay, whether it's able to solve, whether it's able to actually take into account all the different kind of cases. Now, normally these inputs some of the inputs will be provided to you and some of these inputs would be hidden. So the more you practice the code, as you can see, like my answer is correct because it passed all the different, hidden cases and also the visible cases. So generally, whenever you are participating in a contest, you probably might have 10, 15, 20 different kinds of cases. And some of them will be visible to you. Some of them will be hidden for you, right? So the ones that are hidden for you will not be shown, right? And you have to make sure that the code that you write is able to sort of look at all the different kinds of cases that might be possible, right? So this is something that you will only learn by practicing more and more questions, by practicing the different kind of techniques, because it's not just applying a particular algorithm, it is also be able to ensure that yes, you take care of all the different kind of edge cases that might be possible. So another example of this could be, let's say you have been given a problem where you want to like create this problem where you have been given three different sides of a triangle, and you want to find out, okay, whether the triangle is an equilateral triangle, right? So you might think, okay, if I take three input sides A, B, and C, if all of them are equal, it's an equilateral triangle. Let's say if it's like, okay, that all of them are unequal, then it's like a scalar. If two of them are same, then it's an isosceles. So this is good, right? I mean, this is what we have studied in general mathematics. But let's say that did we consider the cases where if the length that is being given is actually 0? Because in the case like all the lengths are 0, it will not be a triangle, but it will be a point. Or let's say the lengths that have been given to us are negative in value. One of the lengths that has been given to us is negative, right? So we also have to take consideration into all these other different kinds of scenarios as well, and these are called as edge cases, right? So basically these edge cases are normally not going to be visible to you, right? And this is where a lot of good companies, for example like the FANG companies or other companies, they test whenever you're giving interviews, they test you on the edge cases as well, because edge cases are not directly visible to you. Only if you have practiced a lot of questions and you truly understand the problem, you can first of course think, okay, like what is the solution, and then you also think about what are the edge cases. These edge cases have to be thought logically. You have to consider each and every possible output that might be possible. So just for the simple example of finding whether a particular triangle is equilateral or not, we had two so said hidden conditions, or these edge conditions, where we were more considered, like we were actually looking at, okay, what are the values of the sides of the the triangle that are coming to us. So I hope this gives some kind of a context. And coming back to the slides, so basically, like let me go ahead and present this. So this is what we were talking about, that the different kind of test cases that we have. For example, this particular diagram that you see, or I mean this particular image that you see, is from the CodeChef platform, where we have basically three different types of cases, where it passed two of the cases, but it didn't pass the third case because it exceeded the time limit. So the time limit is also something that you have to be extremely careful of. You have to optimize your algorithm in such a way that it does not exceed the time limit, because if it does exceed the time limit, it could be, let's say, 1 millisecond, 2 milliseconds, 1 second, right? There will be certain, for example, let's say now, if you're using loops, right? So we know that, okay, the more loops that you use, your complexity becomes. For example, if you're using two loops one by one, right? Like what do we, the name is basically, I forgot the name actually. So I mean, like let's say you're using a for loop inside of a for loop, right? So that would be O of n squared. But instead of using, let's say, a loop inside of a loop, you could have used, like, let's say, a map, right? A hash map. So in that case, your time complexity will reduce. So having all of that knowledge is also equally important, and that will give you an idea, okay, that what should be the, like, how to optimize your algorithm further, right? Nested loop was what I was trying to say. So basically, that is what is the idea about test cases and time limit. So as you can see, I mean, CodeChef itself, or even other platforms, they will provide you basically an ability to add your own custom input and custom, and see the result of the custom output. But sometimes you will find certain some cases which will showcase, okay, like this is the expected output for this particular case. Some of them would be hidden, so you have to make sure that your code is not just. So the idea is that you have to write your code not based on a certain input and a certain output that you see, but you have to make a generalized code, right? Sometimes what we do is, okay, we see a particular input and a particular output, and we just start writing our code from that perspective. But what you have to do is you have to write the code in a way that it's more generalized and can cover all the different kind of cases, right? So that is what is basically the edge cases, and this is sort of a quick walkthrough of the CodeChef platform. Now coming back to basically the next topic, and that is data structures and algorithms, right? So basically data structures are a way through which we store data, and algorithms are basically used to provide you the steps through which you can solve a particular problem. Because of course whenever we're talking about programming, it's all about the data and how we are handling this data and how we are storing this data, right? So when we talk about data structures and competitive programming, right, both are different. Data structures and algorithms is completely different. CP, that is competitive programming, is completely different. Data structures and algorithms teaches you the fundamentals, the core fundamentals of computer science, right? How to store data, how to effectively manage your data, right? How to think about solving a particular problem inside of computer science, right? And that you can do with data structures and algorithms. Now, that doesn't mean that you cannot use data structures and algorithms in competitive programming. At the end of the day, like for example, let's say there might be different types of problems within competitive programming that might use some or the other data structure, right? For example, it could be a dynamic programming based question, like where you could actually apply dynamic programming fundamentals. You could apply graph based fundamentals. But like competitive programming is a lot more than just data structural algorithms. Does mean that you competitive programming. Of course, having a good data structural algorithm knowledge is beneficial because you'll be able to think about, okay, what might be the most effective data structure to solve, let's say, this kind of a problem, or let's say a particular algorithm. But apart from that, you do require a good amount of logical building, right? That means that you have to practice a lot. You have to sharpen your brain by practicing a lot of puzzles, a lot of problem solving, right? Because if you're not really able to decipher like a problem, then it will, you'll not be able to solve that problem. So making your mind ready for such kind of problems, sharpening your, by exercising those kind of, by going through those kind of exercises. And then of course, mathematics plays a really important role. There's a lot of competitive programming focused mathematics. We call them as, let's say, game programming, right? Game theory, all these different kind of topics, bitwise, all these like use some kind of, mathematical tooling or mathematical formulas that help you to basically write your code in a very quick manner, right? Because with competitive programming, it's all about being able to fit your code in as less amount of time as possible, spend as much less amount of time, and make the most optimized solution. So that really is all what is meant for competitive programming. So if you want to go into competitive programming, these are some of the things that you have to sort of keep in mind, right? So basically, talking about the last thing that I would want to probably cover today, and that is, a lot of time we have these kind of this kind of a debate that, okay, is competitive programming really for everyone? So the simple answer is that competitive programming is not really for everyone, right? Even if you don't do competitive programming, you can still become a good engineer, you can still become a good developer, you can still become a good software engineer, an engineer, right? So competitive programming, the main aim, like the main agenda or the main idea behind competitive programming is to boost your logical thinking skills, your problem solving skills, and this will definitely help you out, right? So of course, there are certain companies, for example, Google, Microsoft, Dish, or all these different kind of companies, which are working on extremely complex problems, right? They are geared towards solving like billions of requests every day. And when you're trying to solve such kind of problems, inherently you will come across such kind of situations where you want to optimize your code in such a way that it has to be the fastest, and so that you're able to process all that information very quickly. And that is where some of the concepts of data structural algorithms, right, being able to effectively use, let's say, a particular problem, and then just being able to quickly think about, okay, like what could be a potential solution, that is where competitive programming will be helpful to you. Because see, competitive programming, if you actually look at the codes that are written in competitive programming, they might actually not make a lot of sense to you, because the developers, what they're doing is, or the coders or the competitive programmers, sport programmers, they try to minimize the amount of lines of code, and they use these kind of different techniques that are just meant for competitive programming. These cannot be actually used while you're building systems. But the idea is that the same kind of logics that you try to apply to come up with a solution, an optimized solution, a fast solution, that is same that thing that you can apply in real world as well when you're actually solving problems. So that is why these companies, they do take into account some of the competitive programmers or these competitions like Hacker Cup or Google Code Jam and all of these, right? ICPC, all these different competitions, they do take into account, because they believe that yes, these people who are getting these good ranks in competitive programming, they have that kind of a thinking capability. So even if they might not be really good developers, they have the potential to become in the future, right? So of course, that makes you a desirable candidate for solving such kind of high intensity and such kind of complex problems. But also it just makes, like, competitive programming does make you a lot more faster and focused in your life as well, because you have to make sure that, okay, like, you are able to pass all different kind of test cases. So you start developing a habit of analyzing each and every factor, which can affect your code. So basically that helps you, and then also it helps you, definitely helps you solve complicated problems, right? So it could be, let's say, solving a lot of different questions. Of course, that kind of thing will help you, and it also is, like, let's say, a good way to train your brain, or it can be actually a good brain exercise as well, to keep your brain active. So definitely competitive programming is not required as such, right? For, let's say, cracking interviews or finding a job. You can still be get very good placements or a good job opportunities, even if you are a decent developer with little or no experience of competitive programming. But yes, if you are a good competitive programmer, you shouldn't just focus on competitive programming also, because today, if you are just a competitive programmer, you will still have to learn basics of development when you join a company. So the idea is to be able to manage your time between competitive programming and development. Spend good amount of time in open source development. Spend some time in competitive programming. Before competitive programming, start with data structures algorithms, right? Because competitive programming is not for everyone. Trust me, I also had my share of trying it out for 4 years. It didn't really work out, and but still, I liked it. And I mean, I'm not really doing it nowadays, but of course, when I do, discuss with someone, it's really, nice to hear how people are coming up with the solutions, because believe it or not, like, it does help you build strong logical building problem solving skills. So competitive programming is, in a nutshell, to sort of cover whatever we have covered. In a nutshell, competitive programming is a great way to build logics, right? To do fast and to basically build fast logics and solve really complex problems, right? And do them in the fastest and the most effective way possible, the least amount of space and least amount of time. uh, Data structural algorithms can be used in CP, right? But of course, CP is not just like data structural algorithms. You'll be requiring a lot more other things, for example, mathematics, to basically get good ranks. And yeah, I mean, ultimately, it might not be directly used inside of, like, coding in development, but it certainly does help you become more logically minded, and it helps, like, it's just a great way to put your brains to test, and great brain activity, right? It's like we solve puzzles. It's like a puzzle for developers, for programmers. So with that, I would like to conclude, and we'll be more than happy to take up any questions. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Shiva. So now, if anyone have any doubts, then you can please put it in comment box. Like, there is an option for Q&A, so you can also put it there. Anyone, please? You can raise your hand so that we can unmute you and you can ask your doubts. Anand, do you want to ask something?
If someone is saying something, I'm not able to hear.
No, I don't think it was his mistake, I guess.
Okay.
If anyone is being facing some difficulties while starting, you can ask any type of question related to CP, or if you are facing a difficulty in starting with DSA, so you can ask anything.
Okay, there's a
We
question
have a
in chat box.
question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does language matters?
So, Vinay, ideally it doesn't matter, right? Because the same kind of problems that you can solve can be covered with more or less with every kind of a language. The major differences why people might prefer one language over the other is with some of the inbuilt tools, or internally how they work. For example, in Python you have really great implementation for inbuilt maps, so you can directly just use that inbuilt maps function and solve a problem, wherein you might have to write the entire logic of building a map, in let's say C++. So in that way, yes, like there might be some cases, but to be honest, like if you are good in one language, it should be good enough for you to be able to solve. So like the language, but I would say for beginners who are just getting started, Java or C++, I'll recommend those are good languages because those can also be used outside of competitive programming. So with Java, you can develop web applications, you can develop desktop applications, right? So the you shouldn't be like confused about the programming language. Whichever you feel you're comfortable with, you can pick up that and you'll be able to solve a majority of the problems with any kind of programming language. All right, we have started receiving a lot of questions. That's really great. So IPSA
There is,
asks, yeah. Okay, so
yeah,
IPSA
Shipra.
asks, yeah. So IPSA asks, does CP help in fields of development and research? So as I mentioned, IPSA, this is asked by Sanket, that it will not directly help you. So what that means is that like the code that you're writing inside of the inside of the competitive programming, it will not might not be directly used, but there are two things to it. The data structures that you use, they are used in day-to-day life. For example, arrays, heaps, trees, right? These will be used whenever you are writing any kind of a program. And at the same time, like when you want to solve some kind of complex problems, there the kind of logical skills that you build, right, that problem solving ability that you build from practicing in competitive programming, that can be covered with the help of competitive programming. So it might not be used directly, but yes, it can help. I hope that makes sense. Then IPSAS, should we know the basics of programming before learning CP? Yes, definitely. At least having good amount of expertise, or at least decent expertise in at least one programming language should be there. Otherwise, you'll not be able to write the programs. Then Kavya asks, how do we adapt ourselves to data structures in the beginning? So Kavya, again, the basic idea is that you start learning a basic programming language, you learn about the programming fundamentals, and then you start with the most basic data structure. For example, let's you start with an array. You learn about the fundamentals of array, the different kind of operations that are array, like let's say addition, to an element, deletion of an element, sorting an array, all these different kind of things, and you practice the problems based on a data structure, right? And the more you practice, the more different kind of cases you'll be able to understand that particular data structure in a better way. Then you move on to the next data structure and you learn about the theory, you start practicing it, and then solve a lot of questions. Like the more questions that you solve, the diverse set of questions that you solve, the more you'll get. Like you start with beginner friendly, easy level, then medium level, then difficult level. So this will just give you more and more clarity on how to apply and for what type of problems to use which particular type of data structure. And that is similarly for your question, Sumit. So Anish says, I think for learning CP, should we know basics of DSA? So basically, Anish, the idea again is that with CP, there are two things. One is that yes, you can still use the concepts that you learn in data structures. For example, the different kind of data structures like maps, heaps, or let's say trees. You might use their implementation while trying to solve a computer programming question or a problem solving based question, right? But apart from that, what you can also do is just start doing some basic problem solving. It could be solving puzzles. That gives you an idea, okay, like how to go about solving a particular problem, right? that will give you that will open up your brain more, and it will give you a good exercise, a mental exercise to your brain. And there are some dedicated topics that are very specifically catered towards and techniques that are catered towards CP. So probably the team can also enlighten you during this entire series with those particular topics. So she says, as like language doesn't matter in DSA, but most people give priority to Java. So that is true. A lot of people also give priority to C++. There are a lot of computer programmers who are my friends who work in Python. For some problems, they might solve it in Python. For some problems, they might solve it in C++. So it just really depends on what kind of programming language you are comfortable with. Of course, now I wouldn't say that, yes, if you're trying to use Node.js or you're trying to use Ruby, that is popular. But it's just that the kind of inbuilt functions, the kind of like how internally these languages they work, C++, Java, Python, they are popular. But of course, it's not that only C++ can be used or only these languages can be used. You can still use different languages, but again, how those internal, how basically there are internal structure of those languages, how they are basically working, that does matter also. So that is why some of these languages, like you might find one particular language will give you a faster solution as compared to, let's say, another programming language. Sometimes a Python based solution might be faster than a C++ based solution. But again, even if you know only one of these languages, you should be able to cover like all the problems. Then Sahil asks, should I focus on learning C++ properly and then jump on to CodeChef? Yes, Sahil. So, I mean, apart from learning C++ and getting started with data structures, you can still also do some kind of problem solving skills, right? You can basically do some puzzles in your meantime. It could be something that you can do in your free time, in your fun time, right? So that's something that you can do. But yeah, I mean, like to be able to solve problems and write the code logics, you should know the basics of a programming language. I hope that makes sense. So Rahul, that totally depends on you. Some people do 2-3 questions based on your capacity. Of course, what you don't want to do is overburden yourself or make yourself, like a robot. So you have to also give time to other things as well. You have to give time to other aspects of development and your skills, right? So depends on you. You want to do 2 questions, 4 questions, 10 questions. Totally depends on you.
Okay, Shivai, we have a question from YouTube Live. So the question is, Bhaiya, do you recommend a first year student to go for more than one language or build our DSA good, then move to other languages?
I would definitely say that if you're building your logics in one language, and so the thing is, it's like a pie-shaped learning aspect, right? That you should be good enough that you can solve any kind of problem in one particular language. But if you're still learning some other language, it shouldn't be that you are sort of in the middle waters. That you focus all your time into learning different languages, but you don't really focus your time into problem solving, right? So yes, you can start with one programming language, learn that, and then be good at that, right? Be able to like cover a lot of different things in that, and then you can venture into other programming languages as well. It's nothing wrong, right? I personally, when I do development in JavaScript, Python, and Golang. So I use all these 3 different languages depending on what kind of things that I'm working on, right? Earlier I used to do Java, but since for the past 1.5 years I've been out of touch with Java. So again, whatever you're comfortable with, but again, make sure that at least you have the basics covered of at least one programming language. You're comfortable with at least one programming language. Then Areen, yeah, go ahead, Anurag, sorry.
Okay, so Anant was raising his hand. So do you want to speak something? Anant, yeah, he's there. So Anant, do you have any doubt? Like you was raising hands 2 or 3 times. Yeah, you can ask that. Anant, there's a lot of echo from your side. You can type your doubt in chat box, like if it's possible. Thank you.
Till then, we can probably take some of the other questions. How strong your mathematics should be excel in CP? So, like, if you are good at mathematics, that will help you out, because all these like puzzles, they do require some kind of mathematical calculations that you have to do, right? So even in programming, mathematics plays a really important role, even in machine learning, all these different things, because mathematics again does teach you to solve problems logically, right? It does help you. So being good at mathematics will help you. And again, a lot of these different techniques that you learn in CP, they do require certain degree of mathematics. So definitely it will help you out. Nishant asks which laptop to use. Again, the laptop should be such that it does not hang. You're comfortable using it. I'll not recommend some kind of a brand. It totally depends of like what kind of operating system that you're comfortable with. Some people are comfortable with Mac. I personally use both Windows and Mac, right? So, but of course, it should have at least decent amount of storage and RAM, like one of you have mentioned. At least like let's say 8 GB of RAM should be there. 4 GB today I'll not recommend because 4 GB is really less. So at least 8 GB of RAM. Having an SSD would be great. An i3, i5 processor, bare minimum should be there if you're doing things other than just competitive programming. Then how much time should we give to programming every day? Again, depends totally on you. If you're good, like if you are content with giving 2 hours daily, some people might be content with doing 10 hours. The maximum that you can give, and you're still comfortable doing so. You don't have to overburden. Again, you don't have to let that thing take over you, so that's like you lose your mental balance. So that is really important. You have to balance. Shravan asks how to improve logical building. Really great question. Again, the simple answer to this is solve as many number of problems that you can do. This will give you an basically an understanding of how to solve problems and give you as basically the vision of how to solve different types of problems, right? Great session. Thank you so much. Is it mandatory to, again, it's not mandatory to do CP. Even if you don't do CP, you'll still be able to get really great placements. How could we see ourselves in DSA after taking the course? Probably, this might be better, answered by the organizers, but because I have worked with them and I can definitely say that it will be a great series. CP help in interviews, I've already covered. You can watch the presentation. But yeah, I guess those are all the questions from the chat.
Yes, we had a few questions in our form. Those are really interesting. One is why there are so many programming languages. Why can't there be just one standard language?
That's an interesting question. See, I mean, each and every programming language serves its own purpose. Of course, you can do like let's say if you want to do backend web development, you can do that using Node.js, Django, Flask, in Python, Ruby on Rails, Golang, Rust, right? There are so many different languages. But again, each of them have some specific features. They have some specific things that you can do. For example, when it comes to like system level programming, JavaScript might not be really great, whereas Rust, C++, these are really great for low level programming, right? So it's just how they have been structured, how they have been built. It just depends on the kind of problem that you're solving and what you're comfortable with. I mean, I probably do not have the perfect answer to sort of answer like why there are multiple programming languages that exist, but yeah, I wouldn't say it's a cold war. I mean, all programming languages, like the developer community is really inclusive for everyone. There's not like war between Python communities and C++ communities, but of course it's just giving you more and more options, right? For example, we don't just have Reebok as a brand, right? We have Nike, we have other sports brands. Similarly, we don't have just Code Chef. We have Code Forces and all these different platforms. So it's just giving you different kinds of things, like we have, like life gives us so many choices. That is how we have choices for programming as well. So yeah, I mean, again, Amlan, this question is sort of redundant. There's no one perfect language. Each language has its own use case. Depends on how you utilize it.
Okay, another one was, do companies judge the solutions based upon language-specific approach, or do they have a common criteria for all?
Okay, so some companies might ask you to only solve problems in Java, C++, while others might give you a range of different languages to choose from. In that case, the overall thing that they see is how quick is your solution, if it is able to pass all the test cases, how much less space and less time it has taken, right? And how quickly have you been able to solve. Those are the basic criteria.
All right. How to stay motivated? Where to find always right material for development in CP? this one is the last question for
So
that area.
yeah, basically development is really huge, right? The best way is either to look out for really great courses, look out for great documentation. Some people prefer courses, some people prefer documentation, right? So you have to sort of look at which one do you prefer. When it comes to CP, again, you can get lost in this myriad amount of resources. I wouldn't say that okay, one platform is better than the other, but of course, I mean, platform like for example on CodeChef, if you have a specific problem, you can look at, let's say the discussions forum. You can practice problems from there. You can practice problems from other platforms as well, right? But in terms of resources, again, it depends. There's not like one best resource that you can find. It's just that whichever one that you can apply. But the ultimate thing is when you're learning, you have to implement it. So you have to learn and implement, whether it's competitive programming or development. But yeah, I guess that's pretty much it. It is really nice to see so many folks joining in and a great set of questions.
Yeah, thank you, Shivai. Okay, so we have given a feedback form in chat box. So like, please fill that form so that we can share it with Shivai, and you can also get those certificates. I'm sharing it again in chat box.
Yeah, Bhavya, you can go ahead.
So it was really an informative session. Thank you, Shivai, for this session. It was really helpful, and thanks for your time and knowledge. I hope
Thank
you
you so
all had a
much.
great time in this session. Let us know how it was by filling the feedback form. And we will see you again on Friday at 6 p.m. And we'll be learning about loops, arrays, and strings. Thank you.
Thank you everyone for joining.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, guys.
You may leave now, like if you don't have any doubt.